Welcome to Tashkeel Talk. Briefly, Tashkeel was established in Dubai in 2008 by Sheikha Latifa bint Maktoum bin Rashid Al Maktoum with the aim of nurturing the growth of contemporary art and design practice rooted in the UAE. Its membership organization offers professional artists and designers living and working in Dubai access to a vast array of facilities, workspaces, and support. Tashkeel's public program provides exciting workshops, tours, lectures, and talks. The Tashkeel Talk series features inspiring practitioners and professionals working at the forefront of international visual art and design. It seeks to highlight technical innovation, shine a spotlight on pioneering practices, and provide important insights. Today, we welcome Inés Pedras. Inés is a licensed architect, graduated from ETFAM. I'm not sure if that's how we should pronounce it.
Yeah.
ITSAM, Higher Technical School of Architecture in Madrid, and is a self-taught artist. In 2020, she founded Gemstones Architecture. She is also a researcher of new computational designs with McNell, Rhinoceros, 3D, and a collaborating architect at Kengukuma and AFE. Office for the Intervention of Architectural Designs that hosted the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games in Tokyo, Japan, 2018-2019. Her work experiments with spatial quality in the pursuit of a complex geometrical aesthetic that encompasses all fields of design, ranging from different scales and materialities. Her central concerns involve a simultaneous engagement. Inés is the 2022 Tashkeel Artist in Residence in partnership with Acción Cultural Española. The title of the talk...
And the Embassy of Spain?
Yes.
Yeah, because...
The title of the talk tonight is Biodigital Architecture. In this talk, Inés will discuss biodigital architecture as a multidisciplinary scientific approach to sustainable design that goes beyond using nature as inspiration for aesthetics, but rather studying and applying construction principles that are found in natural environments.
Yes.
Just a few housekeeping rules before we begin. Please keep your microphone on mute during the lecture or talk. Feel free to type your comments and questions in the chat zone, or you can save them up for the Q&A session. Please note that this session is being recorded. Finally, please welcome Inés. Inés, I will leave the ground or the podium for you. You're going to take us through your presentation, and then we're going to open it up at the end for Q&A. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much for the presentation, and thank you so much for the invitation. And thank you, Tashkeel, for all the amazing chances and opportunities, and the exhibition is there so everyone can enjoy, and I hope everyone is enjoying right now. So yeah, my talk today is, as you said, like biodigital architectures. And yeah, as you perfectly explained, like it's more beyond aesthetics, but also I want to introduce this kind of topics like structural and component and constructive details that we found on this natural environment. So yeah, thank you so much. And here I have the biodigital architecture, that is a new discipline approach that study also the material systems, the digital fabrication tools, and also how can apply these biological approaches to a constructive scale. For example, here I have this one is in Tashkeel. It's from above, you see. So it's like, I want to explain like as a bubble, the bubble behavior, but I just speak so much about bubbles in distribution. So here is more like different cells, no? So like a growing behavior, bubble combination, I call it like that. So in each cell, we can see how a single bubble floated freely in the space, so one bubble. But if we connect with another, we create these kind of cells. So as my point of view, I want to translate this approach, like also as humans, but also as animals, because here you can see like an habitat for a human or an habitat for an animal. So for me, it's important this notion of nature, because sometimes we forgot that we belong to nature. If we forgot this relation, we forgot our relation with ourselves. So instead of creating architectural that they are very rigid, I am trying to translate this notion to a more cell organic forms that we found, as I said, in nature. So these properties are not also aesthetic, as I said, like, but structural. Here you can see, like, for example, a branch of cells, or you can see a tree, but also you can see a building. So it also depends of perspective, no? So maybe we are different, but we are the same. Like you see, like, or maybe some people see a sculpture. But this material process is, this, for example, is made with 3D printed, and yeah, is applies as an architectural artifact. Like these properties that I found in nature, for example, the bubble is translated into a vertical skin that grows. Also, these artifacts are related to the material systems. I really enjoy to create my own materials. So when I achieve a material that they are biofabricated with how can I say, natural ingredients, not toxic ingredients. So these biomaterials give us a lot of properties, like they give me, for example, flexibility, transparency. I like with very open to intuition, so I can twist it and I can change the scales. So here, for example, is very related as a living organism, no? So it's like a cell that is started to colonize the space. And here is an example, just an idea of how, like, these environments change. Like, for example, we create an artifact that have different configurations, like in the left side is the vertical tower in the winter. And maybe it's a very simple topic, but I want to translate this idea of environments and how the environments are living as a living organism. So like the building, for example, is a living organism that is winter, that it needs to cold. And in the summer, they rotates the scales, or here the petals, it could be related to any flower. So it's open to the sun. So the configurations is varied between the winter and the summer. So this notion of living organisms is very point of my approach. So I started creating this material as a living organism, as I say. So it started to create these cells by itself. So when I have this material that I do it by myself with my own tools, I am trying to put it on a place, no? So for example, here I work a lot with small details. I want to from the very big scale to the small scale, even the microscope scale, because and then focus on the constructive detail, how this can be related to the construction. So I want to explain here, the material is more than an element. It's a shelter of protection. It gives me textures, it gives me color, it gives me light, and established the atmosphere of space and characterized its existing reminiscence. It's the physical interpretation of the design in space, where it brings to life and allows for a set of multiple correlations between the user and, in this case, the architectural artifacts. These architectural constructions are made computer design from the small scale, from the small detail to the biggest scale. So everything is computational, and you can change the parameters, and you can see the length on the different of the corners, and all this is related with membrane materials. I also like textiles, so you have this kind of textiles, and you give, like, how can I say, the structure between it to hold the stability. So as I say, the same happened with the construction details. It becomes a research organism that develop all the functions in the membrane. I think, yeah, it's easy to understand, like all these corners, like here I define the main elements of the membrane. So like the anchor points, the flexibility corners, I have the mast. This is membrane, just membrane freeform architectural, and the corners, how this construction details of the corners. And yeah, I started to detail every small pieces of it. So like, yeah, and in this case, for example, the construction details give us the character of the intervention. So it could be like just this, like just a constructive detail, it could be a piece of art. So it has to be designed in a small scale, but also it's like a big thing. So everything is related to the, like, how can I say, small details give us, or even people, no? I know big people in the small details. Everything is about details. If you started to create in a constructive detail, you can achieve biggest as possible. Even in the exhibition, I want to explain all these constructive details that are 3D printed and how they construct the maximum perimeter with the minimum material, just with small connections. So in this case, the membrane constructed details that are one of my favorites, like, because they give us the free forms. So this is very flexible and generates less impact on the surroundings. This is very, how can I say, so sustainable, because yeah, it's not that just you put a fabric or just you put a very strong structure. You put just a textile, a membrane with a connection and with constructive detail, and it's very sustainable. And yeah, as I say, we want to create these living organisms, but study the place where we are, environments. We are all shaped by our environments. I really like the notion of environment. So it's not the same to have this kind of architectural in Dubai or in my place, like depending on the weather, the light. Not we are the light, also the water, like as animal. We are all different, but not just because of our DNA, in my opinion. It's also on how we grow up, on our friends, so all of these kind of things, our environments give us what we are. So the same happen in, I want to relate this notion to architectural. So like the building is related, so the place. And here is the urban scale. We see this as the same notion as an organism. So like the ways, the cities, the light, the pre-existences, the buildings that happen in the place, they will modify the project. And also the wind, also the landscape, the topography. Here in this case, it was a river near there. So all of these membranes are related to the environment. The projects works a lot with the environment. Even my exhibition there is not the same to be there than to be in another place. The environment is everything. And here, for example, we see this is Barcelona, like the mapping of Barcelona. But in this mapping, we see these roads that they configurates the membrane. So they have this kind of geometry shapes, like also have a painting that they are connected with branches, all these branches that grow in different directions in an organic way. So we can see a urban city, we can see a small microbiome growing along the flexible material. So we can see in 2D, these branches grow in different directions. So just a matter of perspective, no? So I translate, this is, for example, an idea that how the waste materials that happen in Barcelona creates a datascape. It was related with another project, but it was like all this landscape of data that applies in digital forms that I can create it with parameters. So I am working on the computer, putting different data, and the data creates the landscape. So it's related with a realistic project that is happening there in Barcelona, all the waste material, the data, but it's also related with a landscape that creates the data. So the data itself creates the project. So for example, here is a constellation of the different data points that creates related, not the main points are the places where the waste is bigger. So this creates an environment, a triangulated environment from the urban space. This urban space, as I see here in 2D, we see a triangulated map, constellation mapping. It's in 2D, and I want to translate this to the workshop that I did in Tashkeel, because it was super. Just in my case, I love it to teach the people like in 3D dimensions. So because people in the arts work a lot in 2D, but like 3D gives us another view. So we started doing our workshop with 3D structure. It was with very, very easy materials, very like open to work with hands. And with this constellation mapping relating to data, we create these kind of structures. that it was so much fun. At the end, we created just to learn how the triangulated structure give us the most stability, because the triangle is the most simple, but also the most stable form in the geometrical world. So the basic shapes give us the most stability. And this kind of concept, like less the material and most the properties, is related with the maximum perimeter, less material, and less toxic materials, so more sustainable. At the end, it's all dependent of the resources. So the less of the resources with the most of the result is kind of like my kind of goals, no? Yeah, this structure were very open to intuition, but I want to like trying to explain kind of engineering logics. And yeah, we created like this with small shapes. And here is another example of this structure, very lightweight. This was made of spaghetti, you know. Yeah, another example. And when we have this structure, not this structure, like in general, when we have the structure, we started to calculate the structure. So to do the structure, I do a lot of tests on the computer. I started to put forces and to put different tension to the structure to see if it works. Normally it works, like if I like to do it first on the computer, because like we have all like these advanced tools that give us all the necessary properties to know like if it's going to work on reality. So like the digital and the real world are very connected at the end. And this is the membrane force with the tension elements. It was like the membrane and it was tensional in different points. And yeah, the red points are more tension elements. So here I have more visually here. I like to work a lot with simulations. That is it's more visual, no? So you see there how this membrane structure is holding, no? And to find the equilibrium. Like it's not going to fall, it's going to be in equilibrium. So the different colors give us the normal forces, the tension forces. So everything is very into detail analyzed in the simulation principles. And we apply forces to this to see if it works. So here is another analysis, but in this case, it's not just forces, it's just I apply the optimization in terms of solar analysis. Like we put exactly in Dubai that there is a lot of sun. So we need to do like a lot of solar analysis. So there are points where the radiation of the sun is bigger than the other. So we have this tension, these critical points that we have to be more in detail, and these construction elements, we need to focus these parts on them. So here is all the results from the catalog, from the analysis of solar analysis. And here is another, like all of these analysis give us data, and with the data we translate it to the project to see, like it's important not just to see, like sometimes the data change the project a little bit, but in general it's just to know if to be sure if it's working. And here is they have mast, different mast, like the membrane is hosted by mast, and there are forces in it that they have to be like taking care of that. So there are some space that hold, like as the notion as integrity that I want to explain later, like how the parts work, the individual parts have to be in equilibrium and working well itself to work as a whole structure, as a whole, no? So the individual parts, it's not like we can do it alone, no? The individual parts have to work together. So all this data in the computer at the end is like related also to humans, like we have to work together to achieve good results. So the project, like here is more architectural, so translate the project to these growing organisms, like an animal growing into the landscape. and we create these free forms that they grow along the landscape. All these lightweight membranes are very flexible, but also they have a lot of properties. It's like, as I said before, they achieve the maximum perimeter with the less material as possible. They cover a lot, no? So it's like you put the cover. Here they grow as like in different branches, no? In different directions, like as an start, no? It's starting in a middle point, but it grows along the landscape, along the nature. So it's biodigital, but just not as replication nature, just its behavior, no? Nature have the mathematical forms more optimal. So it's replication, this kind of behavior that we found on the biological process. So this project, the program was related with a big stadium. So because it's like the maximum perimeter, for example, an stadium, no? So this architectural the program was an stadium. It could be another thing, but in this case was an stadium. And they have different, like in the middle, the football team, yeah. Yeah, for example, here we see the facade that as a branch of biological growing elements, no? We see as a building, but we see as a growing animal along the landscape. And this also creates a lot of shadows, no? Because the geometrical is kind of very specific, a very unique geometry, very organic, and give us a lot of properties like shadows, light, textures. It gives like the character of the place at the end. So yeah, this is in plan, the section. And here, like people that they are there inside, sitting there, they started to see this new atmosphere, no, that grows with them. So they feel like they are not in a super street place. They feel like they are part of the nature. They feel like they are part of themselves. So this architectural plant, want to translate this notion. Here is more the constructive detail. So yeah, everything have to be into detail to the end, to the small pieces have to be studied. Just before we lose materials, if we do something wrong, so it's not this is not sustainable. So we need to study before. So we have the tools, no? The computational design tools give us, like in the past it was not like that. So now we have the tools. We have I like the robots. So like we can create as fast as possible and into detail. Here is the structural analysis of how this membrane. So I started cooking myself the material, and then I started to create like something very big. And now we have to study all of these structural elements, the construction element, and everything that works. So how to translate a very concept idea into a very realistic, very technical way. So like from the very, very free-form idea that came into art to very specific structural way. And this is more elements, how these nodes are connected to each other, like the circle in the middle, and the mass, how they are connected with them. Yeah, just the small details of the construction. Yeah, thank you so much. And yeah, I like also work with simulation, and just a small simulation of this growing organism working together. So here, oops, sorry. Here we see, I want to focus on the construction elements. So we have like this kind of simulation that the virtual reality, this is very fast, something very fast that I did like.
Inés?
Yeah.
We can't see your screen. Can you share again? We can't see the presentation. Yes, now you can.
This is the simulation, but you see the presentation, right?
And I see the folder that has the different files. I see your desktop.
You don't see.
No, try sharing again. Yeah, again, I see your desktop with the folder. If you want, exit and then come back again, if that works. Like from your shared, exit and then come back again.
It's okay, it's just a simulation to see the construction details.
But that would have been nice to see, actually.
You don't see it now, no?
I don't see it, no. Double click on the file. Are you double clicking on the file?
You see now?
I see the presentation now.
So let's take this, for example. No. You see now?
I see the presentation, but you're not flipping through the presentation. So I just see the title page.
Okay. So I close it.
And try again.
I'm so sorry. Sorry.
No problem.
You see now?
I see again, we went back to the folder that has the name, and I see it's an AVI file.
No, not now.
No, back to the folder.
It's a video, so maybe the video with the video, I don't know. Maybe
maybe it's not working. Okay,
yeah,
let's go
I'm
back.
So sorry.
It's okay.
Maybe they just allow to share. Yeah, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I wanted to finish with the simulation, but okay, it's just I want to explain it by myself. It's like a simulation with the structural elements, like the tension elements, how they are like, for example, here with the membrane and different colors related to this, different colors to different points. Just a simulation of the analysis. I'm so sorry, but yeah, you understand what I'm saying.
Do you want to open up the presentation again, just in case someone has a question in relation to what you just showed?
You see the presentation?
Yes, we see it now.
Ah.
Yeah, I think let's keep it open. Are you
okay? So yeah, the simulation it was related to these colors, no? So like we see in a video how the red colors give us the most tension and the blue are more in less tension. So it was a simulation with this kind of structural analysis, and also a pathway along the landscape, growing along the landscape. But yeah, but in your imagination, like you understand, like growing organisms along the landscape.
Are you done with the presentation?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Shall we open it to Q&A? Is there anything else you want to add?
No, please ask me questions, whatever you want to.
I'm gonna open.
Sometimes I'm very I'm very abstract, and I'm not sure if everyone is understanding what I'm saying, because maybe philosophical at some point. So yeah, I want to be sure that is kind of clear. Because when I say like as a living building as a living organism is kind of maybe super philosophical. So yeah, I wanted you to please ask me.
We're gonna open it to Q&A. So whoever is online and is interested in asking questions, you can either ask through the chat box, or you can just raise your hand and ask your question live to Inés. I'll start off the Q&A section by asking you, because I know you've used the word integrity, geometric integrity so much, and I really want you to define what integrity really means and its relationship with what you also kind of pointed out to humanistic values. I think you just brushed through it in the presentation, but I think it's worth kind of
to explain better. Yeah, because the exhibition is very related to that. No? Yeah, good question. Thank you so much. So yeah, integrities, like in plural, because sometimes I put it integrity that it holds different meaning, no? But integrities in plural means like the different elements, like how I'm explaining the structure, how the different elements work itself to create the whole. No, so integrities, for example, in the exhibition, I have different kind of medias and different kind of even disciplines and even materials. So how these different materials, they have communication between them. So like, so maybe we are different, but at the end we are the same. No, so all these small parts create the whole. So even in the collage, I want to say like all different parts creates the whole work. And this kind of integrity is related, so that we have to, like, I want to explain, like, we have to work together, we have to help each other. So they have not also like what we can see, but also what we can feel and what we can learn from each other. And these values are related to materials, but related to as you say, as a humans, no?
But you kind of related to geometric integrity.
Claro, because materials have different geometrics. So these structures have different geometrics, no? The membrane have like the triangle, all are the same, no? Started with a triangle, for example. And from the triangle, I started to put aggregate more, and create different geometrics, no? So a triangle is the simple shape, but if we put another triangle, it's not a triangle anymore. It's like a hexagon or a pentagon. So it started to grow by aggregation and also by scale, by rotate. So you apply different parameters to a simple geometrical part, and it started to grow in different directions, and it has to have different properties and different, and it's another thing, no? It's like transforming into something different.
Yeah.
So these geometrical have different integrities, but they work together, no? At the end, you see the result. For example, here you see a structure, or you see something here, no? But each element or each node, each triangle have its own properties, and the whole properties constitute the whole. So this is the integrity as a society, no? Because it's very important to work in the society. Everyone have their own part. Everyone is important as the geometry. Every node is important, and it's also to change the world, to do something different, to create new models that make what we have obsolete, so to create something for the future, because we are going to live all there. So we have to have this knowledge of what's going next.
Yeah, I mean, you do speak about, like when you're also with this question, when you're answering with regards to the humanistic values, it's more of a symbolic, philosophical understanding.
Yeah, it's more philosophical, but with a practical. I wanted to say that, like, with a practical, as a practical tool, no? So we see, because I wanted like everything have their own meaning, no? You see, it's not just to see and nothing happens. Like, you see there and change your mind and inspired you in a different form of thinking. So you didn't think about that before, and now you have a new window of opportunity to think different, to open windows to new.
Yeah, so you do speak about geometric integrities or integrity in general with a, as you say, a philosophical understanding of it on a humanistic value, but you also refer to a non-anthropocentric understanding or view to these structures. So I wonder how that interplays.
Yes, we are not the most important, like human, like we have so many differences, and sometimes we don't work in the right direction. So I want like to put in a scales that we are very small, and how even the universe is so big, and we sometimes we think we are the most important species in the world, and they are like small microbes that they give us. Oh no, we are not. You are not the most important thing, the most important element in this planet. So this is kind of view, no? So I started to have more humble to nature and more humble to our planet.
So really, the integrity at this level in the work is at the level of materiality and the parts, but also at a non-centric level, because it is kind of mimicking patterns that exist in nature that are not necessarily anthropocentric.
Yes, correct.
Right. Okay.
Yes. It's not that, yeah, it's not, I don't know if it's easy, but yeah, it's that exactly.
I'm just curious about how a habitat that is in its entirety and its conception conceived out of non-anthropocentric understanding, and yet is supposed to be geared towards humanistic or human circulation.
Like human in terms of behavior, like, but also humans in terms of environments. So the work is related a lot with, like, as explaining always, like the environment. And nature is the urban landscape also important for me, like how all these skyscrapers are built, but also the small nature elements that grow along the land, all of the buildings. And this relation between what is artificial and with what is natural.
So the environment in which these structures are placed is supposed to be kind of taking care or recording human survival, human environments within these non-anthropocentric structures.
Yes.
Okay.
But also, I want to create something different, something that is never seen before, because we have to have a new culture of doing something more different as now. For me, it's very important this notion of new world and new change and new to see different.
Yeah, I mean, we have been in the material turn, as they say in art history, that we've turned, or there was a shift in the view of anthropocentric versus non-anthropocentric. So it's now more geared, like in the last few years, it's geared towards more material agency within this new materialism understanding. And I think you also label, so I'm also interested in understanding from you, you label materialism or materials as systems. And I'm curious on how define these systems. How are materials systems?
Material system, no? So, I mean, for example, the constructive elements that hold the material, like starting to create all these constructive elements, give us the system, no? It's like the material is, for example, we see these green things are the membrane, but the membrane is surrounding, but these structural corners and these flexible unions. So the system that creates from the material, that this green thing, it creates the whole system of elements around it. So this is like the material system.
So physically, the material itself is structured within a system that has a human intervention, right? So material systems are a combination between non-anthropocentric.
Good point. Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
I'm gonna push you on this point, but we have a question, and I will read the question. Do you think the selections of the materials used emphasize on the creation of contrast between the built environment and the nature, or is the architectural design that must create contrast?
I'm not sure if I understand. So the artificial element give us more. No, say again, please.
It's two parts. So do you think
okay.
Do you think the selections of the materials used emphasize on the creation of contrast between the built environment and the nature?
For sure. So depending on the material, it gives us a different language. So so for example, how can I say an example of this? Like like here, the fabrics, no? So if we have another material, it gives us different properties. So at the end, the result even the design of the building is going to be different. So the geometrical parts that the material itself holds, it gives us the design. It's clear?
Because there's the other part is, so it's either that or is the architectural design that must create contrast.
They are one with each other, no? So the geometrical that it holds the properties from the material is related to the design of the building. So the building, you can start from a small scale to design the building, or you can start from the whole urban sphere, from the whole urbanism. So it's not just the building itself, but the whole urban. And so, for example, the building is different depending if they have more space or less space or its property. So the design of the building depends on the material and on the place and everything. It's just not one thing. For me, the structure is one of the most important. I like to design with the structure. So in my case, I like buildings with a very different structure, not like just a square, a simple square. So more organic, more free form. So, but very free, no? They have the building totally free. So you can design as your imagination. So very open to intuition, not super rigid.
You do talk about certain parameters through which these structures that you call membranes, right, kind of intervene in the space, and the logic through which they either kind of grow, right? And
yes.
I kind of want you to kind of go through some of these parameters, because you speak a lot about, scalability, you speak about perspectives, you speak about, particularly when it comes to material, like the ability for it to be like the plasticity of the the ability to mold that material, right?
Yeah.
You also like the adaptability of that material. So there are some categories that you kind of have as parameters in which while you're working that membrane, because it could go infinite, it could be endless, right? In terms of its mimicry, especially using, cutting edge digital computational codes. It could go forever. And the question is, when does this end? So then there are these parameters through which you are kind of putting a limit.
Yeah, it's like, this is the point, like to pushing the limit of currents, current things. So with the scale, I like to do something very replicable. So it's like to be something small, but it can translate to a biggest and biggest and biggest, always the latest. So scale, and what you said more, like perspective. Yeah, everything is a matter of perspective, of scales. So I work a lot with scales. And these digital tools give us to pushing forward, to to advance, no? Because always as much advanced as possible.
But again, because I was, we had a mini chat before we opened this to the public, this idea of the fact that we are kind of taking these patterns,
the patterns.
Yeah, so kind of extracting these patterns from necessarily non-anthropocentric environments around us, right? And then creating these generic.
Yeah, but I want to say not the pattern as itself, not just a mimic, just the behavior, how this behavior grows, no? So
make the pattern from those behaviors.
But the pattern is the result. So what is important is the laws, that mathematical laws that are inside it. So for example, because nature works with adaptability. So for example, like I put the example in winter and summer, no? So the behavior for it's like to cover when it's cold and to open when it's light. So this kind of behavior that is in nature And this nature of open and give us rotate, so creates a pattern of rotation, or a pattern in 2D that they have like this kind of petals, but it's the behavior, not just the mimic of it. So like the behavior is like, it's cold, so yeah, I'm cold, I'm putting more of this. So it's summer, I'm putting less. Or also the sun is like a lot of sun on the window, so like I will cover this part with with something more strong, or it's less light, I put more window, that this kind of behavior.
I mean, but even that behavior is very generic in the sense of it's either this or that. And when we know in nature, it's like when you're cold, you cover, when you're hot, you uncover.
Yeah, but it's very important, this notion. Yeah, I wanted to say this notion. Because sometimes we forgot the simple that we forgot that we are nature, and we live in places that they are not related to us. So we forgot these small things, and our spaces, our artifacts give us like the mental health, like even our lives give us different properties. So to don't forget these small things that they are related to that.
I mean, in that project that you showed, which is basically what we're seeing here, is kind of extracted the behaviors of a bubble, right?
Yes, like for example, in the exhibition, I do the cells.
Yeah.
That we see like how these bubbles are applying into one existing structure. Yeah. So how this bubble grows. Like I spoke a lot about bubbles in the past. Yeah. Also, yes, like how this grows. So this kind of behavior of growing relating to one structural way. So different windows and different.
Yes. Which then you apply to the other tower, in which, as you said, it closes during winter and it has the possibility.
It's just an example, no, of how we have to create more clear environments with these notions. Like
I'm just trying to point out that like this, I'm trying to figure out this notion of integrity within the behavior of a non-anthropocentric material like bubbles, for instance, that then we put onto it a humanistic understanding of cold and hot, which is you put clothes on and you cover or uncover, which is a very anthropocentric understanding of environment. So I'm curious about this notion of integrity within the parts, when the parts are not necessarily integral from their sources.
But I want to say the parts are integral of the process and the parts of the whole. So like, for example, when something grows, they don't grow in the same shape. They don't grow like all the circles are the same. One are small, one are bigger, and the union between them, so they give different kind of geometrical forms. So all of these forms, they are different, but at the whole thing, they create the whole stability.
So it's actually a process-based, material-based integrity that comes or brings together all these elements around us, regardless, to create an environment of what you might call, contemporary or urban living, right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, this is cool. I hope.
It's so cool.
I'm gonna move forward because you also talked about this idea of folding, which I think is really interesting. And I want to also ask about this.
But this is from my past. Yeah.
Is it?
What do you mean?
I'm interested in the factor of time in those designs. If you factor
the temporality.
Yes.
The question is.
So I'm thinking, within this folding or even within these tension points, what is the relationship of time beyond elements that open, like environmentally responsive, like the notion of time as a durational element within these spaces.
This is, yeah, so the notion of time relating to spaces.
How do you think of that? Because also it's a lot about like natural mimicry, and also like working like this combining of biodigital, like digital cutting edge computational coding is also interesting when you think about time, because there are so many.
Yeah, because we can put time as a parameter, no?
Yeah.
So like you put it, yeah, sometimes I put like faster, and I want this growing faster than the other. Yeah, I put the notion of time there. Yeah, and how like the variation changes during the time. So it's different, like even the time reflects the weather. So how different weather change during the time, even during the day, no? So we have different lights and shadows depending on if we are in the morning or at night. So like the notion of time is the biggest parameter sometimes. And we study how is if it's going to be durable in the future. So all the time aspect is a main point. Yeah, and it's very easy to translate these kind of parameters into the computer part. So yeah, it's to put radiation on the sun, or winter, or wind, or even snow. And all of these parameters that happen during the year or during the day are specific parts that we need to be very, very study. We need to study all of them. All of them.
There's also this notion of data as also as it providing the perspective and the modeling through which we see certain cities or certain places. And you give, I think it was Barcelona or Madrid. Was it Barcelona?
I put Cádiz, it's another Spanish city. Yeah, I put Barcelona in the map. Yeah. So all the environments, in this case the city, it could be another environment, but yeah, the urban cities give us a lot of data, and all these data are collected, and after we collect all the data, we can design depending on the data. It's not the same.
But they also offer a pattern through which it's modeled, through which we see it, right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
And I wonder if that is your starting point. I'm trying to understand how you like your process of thinking, and how it's from where it starts and how do you go through it. It would be interesting if you can just.
My process is like from a single idea. I always started sketching, like in my case. So I started sketching what I'm thinking, and I'm trying my best to do these things, these small sketches, to reality. So, but all this process have different starting points, like where we are, what we need, what is the purpose. Also for me it's very important as I didn't say the aesthetic, but also the design, the contemporary dialogue. The process started from a single idea to the end, and to detail.
Does your process change based on where that project is going to be executed?
I mean, what I want to say is, like, before it's going to be executed, it's very in the computer. It has to be like very perfect. So before I started to build it, it has to be very, very well studied. So even like the simulation, I didn't put the simulation, but even in the virtual reality, we can see like how it's going to happen. So like the most as accurate as possible. So like we don't want like something that, oh no, this is not what we were thinking about. So like very, very between each other, no? Between the digital and the real world. Like they have to communicate very well.
I like how you defined material as a shelter, as a physical interpretation
Oh, wow.
of a physical.
Yeah, I'm a materiality person. Yeah, I love materials a lot.
Yeah. And I wonder, like, with these, as you call, behaviors that then are extracted into patterns that then become these membranes that you then use as structural built environments. Do you map out, do you go out and map out different non-anthropocentric, elements in the environment? Do you do that regularly? Do you have a bank of that you can kind of, extract these behaviors from when you're building or trying to create a new project? Can you just take us through that as well?
Sometimes I think it's not just the tool or the process, or it's just how we use imagination or how we use our mind in more an abstract way, and we translate this abstract way in a real object. So not just something that is from nothing, it's just from your inside sometimes. And yeah, not intuition. I don't want to say intuition, it's more like imagination, or even more like your real self want to translate something, and or you see something that it gives you curiosity, and this kind of curious environments translated to the artifact.
I'm also interested in how you define scale, because from what I saw in terms of the structures that you've created.
Scales, I want to say in terms of replicable.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so something very small, it could be replicable into a biggest thing. So it's my notion of scale, yeah.
So it's not necessarily a humanistic notion of scale.
Also humanistic, also both. They are, the work and the philosophy work together. So yeah.
I've also, I wanted to challenge you on this idea of these these behaviors that become patterns that then become these models that you can use, or modules that you can use anywhere in the world, like a very scalable perspective, like modules that could happen anywhere in the world. And I wonder, is that especially when you kind of philosophically connect that to humanistic values, I wonder if that is really taking into consideration the intimacy and the particularity of specific areas. Is there a counterpart there? Because I feel like when it's, these patterns or behaviors are becoming patterns, and then they can apply anywhere in the world, regardless what that is.
No, regardless, depending on the place, depending on the environment. So yeah, the data is collected to know if it's going to work in the environment.
So you think that it's still preserving the particularity of that particular space?
You mean if they're going to give more visual impact in the place? Something.
Yeah, because if right?
So yeah, but I also like the dualities, no? So the contrasts are also enriching, no? It's sometimes like you put something very different near to something, or maybe something new, something very old. So this dialogue that they communicate between each other, it's also important. It's like, yeah, it's not a problem at all to have something very different working together. So we just have to learn how to, like, as I said, working together as a human, but also as a buildings, no? So they have to work together. And it's important to have a new culture and a new aesthetic. So like something new is going to have a new dialogue with something from the past. So we are learning from the past, but also creating the future. So this notion of contrast, even my home place, my hometown, that is like different weather, different environment with Dubai, like they have the contrary. But I can communicate both. I can live in both of places. So yeah.
I mean, it's interesting because you talk a lot about like aesthetics and this notion of newness. So I want to kind of also poke you in defining these. And what do you mean by aesthetics? And also what is newness for you? Because, you know, when you talk about contrast, newness can come from the old, but it's derived through a progression from
it's important. It's like the main point to create a prototype that is never done before. This is one of my goals, no? Like to create something, even everyone have to do the same, like created a new, even if it's a small thing, but to create new, this is how society is going to work, no? So like we started to experimenting, to creating new things and to make the others, like some we learn from the past, of course, but like creating new prototypes. Like we work first on prototype to see if it works. And after that, like it could be colonized everywhere.
Again, this idea of, you know, replica or something that is replicable. How does something become replicable?
Replicable in terms of scale, no? So you translate to a small scale, it would translate it to a biggest one. So in the biggest one, we have to study more like the forces or the, we have to study more. It's very easy to do something smaller, but but this kind of idea of translated to one microscopical view to a huge one. So replicable in terms of scale.
The last question that I want to highlight is you put so much importance on this idea of a living, you know, like a living organism, right?
In this notion,
right. And
in this talk, but not in my life,
it would be nice to also kind of if you can kind of divulge on that a little bit, because I know you kind of reference this idea of house or whatever, but that's in different places. Like as a living organism, right? As something that is alive.
For example, something very visual is a tree, no? So the tree, it grows different branches in different directions, and it's like the living organism giving us this nature of branches, no? So here, this kind of branches growing, like we see the structure of the tree. So it's a building, but also like the branches, the behavior of the branches. So it's like a living organism, like a tree is a living organism. It could be another organism, like microscopical organism, but also a tree is a natural form with branches, and it's very visual to realize that this behavior is happening there.
I know that you've worked across different mediums in your practice, and it's just not just necessarily you know, a 3D modeling or 2D modeling, but also you kind of did a lot of like painting and sketching, and I wonder, because you also, you know, you bring forth this question of where does art start and where does architecture end, or vice versa. And it would be nice to hear your perspective on that as well.
I don't know, because like, for example, in the Renaissance, like Leonardo da Vinci works in different files, and no one going to say like, oh, you're working more on this, on the other. Like in my case, I work more in architectural, of course, but I related a lot with, for me, like painting and sketching and all of this give me like not my inspiration, of course, it's not my inspiration, it's like part of myself. So I don't want to say related, but like it's my form of creating, no? So I have in different, as you said, no, different medias. I work, my principal work is architecture, but different media give us more, how can I say, like more life, more life, more. So it's not like closing door, just open as much as possible. So we don't find, like, I like to cross knowledge in different disciplines to connect each other. So just not the arts, but also another, even biology in this case. So it's like different. The main one have to be flourished with all of them.
I want to end my kind of questions with what you just said with regards to your dream is to kind of create
a new society
before prototype.
Say again, sorry.
So your kind of your aim or objective is to create a never done before prototype.
Yes.
And I wonder, like, how do you envision that? Like, what is, you know?
Yeah, it's like to design something that is never done before, like, because sometimes people started to create something having a lot of reference from others. So it's like you don't have to, and from your culture also, from different aspects, no? So creating something from scratch, from nothing. So if you created something from scratch, not culture, not time, not reference, so you started to create something new. Even I think in China is doing that, like they created without, because it's, or even in the desert in Dubai, no? So it's not reference at all. You created something from scratch and you create a new aesthetic form. That, yeah.
I mean,
and this aesthetic form, in my case, I want to put it into a structural way. So a building with a new, different structural way.
Inés, is there anything you want to say before we end this very interesting conversation together?
I think I said everything. I don't know.
If there is something that you wanted to say that I didn't ask you or was, you know, just brushed through, we can do that as well.
I don't know. You said everything.
Yeah. Seriously, thank you so much, Inés. This was
thank you so much.
I mean, I've done the tours with you physically here in Tashkeel. I've gone through your work. We've had encounters in the space, and it was really nice to see.
Yeah, it's part my essence is there. It's not, I'm not physically right now at this moment, but yeah, all my children, no, it's living, my creations are there. So yeah, in different files, no, it's like, yeah.
Yes. And hopefully we see more of those prototypes that you're talking about, and I can gruel you even more with regards to the new work that you will be doing. As I said, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for holding. It was my pleasure. Oh my God, thank you so much.
For more information on Inés's talk, on Inés's work, please visit inespedras.com.
Yeah, that's my website, no? It's like my universe.
And you will see the, the different fractions of this universe. And for more on Tashkeel, please follow us at Tashkeel Studio on Instagram and at tashkeel.org, where you will find lots more talks, lectures, and workshops to join. See you next time, and thank you very much again.
Thank you so much again. My pleasure.
Thank you, Inés.